Again, we want to thank everyone for joining us. We apologize for the delay. The Democrats have an important caucus they're at, or conference they're at, we had some technical difficulties here. We'll now, the chair now recognizes himself for an opening statement. Alvin Bragg's prosecution of President Trump is lawfare at its worst. The New York County District Attorney's Office began investigating President Trump in 2018. Southern District of New York, months later, concluded its investigation into the payments by Michael Cohen and determined no charges should be brought against President Trump. While this was going on, Alvin Bragg was running for the job. While on the campaign trail, Mr. Bragg boasted about the number of times he had already sued President Trump. In January 2021, Mr. Bragg stated, "I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump," close quote. He said that it'd be hard to argue with the fact that any case against President Trump would be the most important, most high-profile case. Mr. Bragg won and took office in January 2022. A few weeks after taking office, he told one of his prosecutors, Mark Pomerantz, quote, he could not see a world in which he would indict President Trump and call Michael Cohen as a prosecution witness.
Patriots, welcome back to the channel. This is your host, a proud American, a constitutionalist, and someone who's just had enough of the political games the left is playing with our country. If you love America, if you believe in freedom, law and order, and truth, then buckle up, because we're going deep into political witch hunt that Jim Jordan just exposed in front of Congress. It's lawfare at its worst, and it's not just about Trump. It's about all of us. I just finished watching Congressional statement by Representative Jim Jordan, and let me tell you something. Folks, if you weren't fired up before, this will light a fire under you. What Alvin Bragg is doing to President Donald J. Trump is nothing short of a political assassination attempt using the court system. This is what happens in banana republics, not in the United States of America. Let's start with the facts. Bragg, a radical, Soros-backed district attorney, ran for office promising to take down Trump. That wasn't a dog whistle. He literally bragged, no pun intended, about how many times he'd already sued Trump. That wasn't law enforcement. That was a political campaign pledge. Imagine that. A DA weaponizing the justice system as a campaign promise. If that doesn't scare you, it should.
That's right. After campaigning on going after the former president, Bragg gets into office and realizes the case against President Trump is ridiculous. That is why the Southern District of New York didn't bring it. It's why his predecessor, Cy Vance, didn't bring it. Why did Bragg change his mind? Mark Pomerantz, Special Assistant District Attorney, resigned in protest, and he and his fellow Assistant District Attorney, Kerry Dunn, leaked their resignation letter to the New York Times. After that, the left began the pressure campaign on Alvin Bragg, and suddenly the zombie case was resurrected. One of the first things Alvin Bragg did was hire Matthew Colangelo, a top official in the Biden Justice Department who had a history of taking on President Trump and his family's businesses. It's also interesting to note who Mr. Colangelo listed as his references when he applied for the job at the Justice Department. He listed Tom Perez, former DNC chair, and Jeff Zients, who is now President Biden's chief of staff. That's right. The head of the DNC and the Biden White House chief of staff, those were his references. That's the guy who went to work to be the lead prosecutor on the case against President Trump. Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo picked their target, searched for a crime, and then they prosecuted President Trump. The partisan DA that campaigned on going after President Trump, whose newly hired lead prosecutor for the case also had a history of taking on President Trump, also had their case in front of a partisan judge. A judge who donated to President Biden, who imposed a gag order on President Trump, who told the jury they didn't need to reach a unanimous decision, and prevented one of our witnesses today, Mr. Smith, an expert on campaign finance, from giving real testimony to the court. Today, Mr. Smith will be given an opportunity to tell Congress and tell the country what he wasn't permitted to tell the court, what he wasn't permitted to tell the jury. Remember, Bragg and Colangelo bootstrapped charges that are normally misdemeanors to some underlying crime to make the charges a felony. But what was the underlying crime? Prosecutors didn't reveal that until after the trial began. Mr. Colangelo, in his opening statement, accused President Trump of violating the Federal Elections Campaign Act. But the problem is, in the plain reading of that act, doesn't support the indictment or the verdict. As Commissioner Smith stated, allowing this prosecution to go forward and the ultimate jury decision threaten the enforcement procedures established by Congress under the act and stretch the meaning of the statute in such a way as to threaten due process of law. Although Judge Merchan wouldn't permit the leading expert on campaign finance to provide this testimony, He did let someone else speak in the court on this issue and others, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, a convicted perjurer, someone even his former lawyer said you couldn't trust. Michael Cohen, who lied to Congress, lied to the FBI, and lied to the court. It's not often you have a witness that can lie to all three branches of government and then become the star witness in the prosecution of a former president. But that's exactly what took place in New York. It is clear Manhattan District Judge Juan Merchan's decisions, guided by political bias, unfairly prejudiced the outcome of the trial and violated President Trump's due process rights. Bragg's prosecution of President Trump, with the help of Judge Merchan, opened the door for politically motivated prosecutions, and it will not be easy to undo the damage that's already been done. As we have seen, other ambitious prosecutors have followed Bragg's lead and pursued politically motivated indictments against the former president. Rather than debate political opponents on substance, the Democrats' strategy to win the 2024 election is through the use of partisan, lawfare tactics. These politically motivated local prosecutions raise substantial federal interest and potential collusion between federal and state authorities. And that is precisely why we are here today. Alvin Bragg's prosecution of President Trump was personal, it was based on politics, and it was wrong. We now recognize the ranking member for an opening statement, and then we'll get to our witnesses.
When Bragg got into office, even he had enough sense at first to say the case against Trump was weak. He told his own prosecutors he couldn't see a world in which this went to trial. But guess what happened next? The far-left mob applied pressure. And like every weak, compromised politician, he caved. His own staff leaked resignation letters to the media to publicly shame him into taking action, and it worked. The zombie case came back from the dead. Then we find out that Bragg hires Matthew Colangelo, a high-ranking Biden DOJ official, as lead prosecutor. This guy didn't just work for Biden. He had DNC Chair Tom Perez and Biden's chief of staff as references. Are you kidding me? This is supposed to be an independent prosecution? Patriots, this isn't law. This is political warfare with handcuffs. This is a definition of a rigged system. Bragg and Colangelo didn't investigate a crime and then follow the evidence. No, they picked their target, Donald Trump, and then went hunting for anything they could twist into a felony. That's not justice. That's tyranny. You do that in Venezuela. In China, not here. And just to add insult to injury, the judge overseeing the case, Juan Merchan, donated to Joe Biden and other Democrats. Then he places a gag order on Trump, violating the First Amendment rights of former and possibly future president of the United States. Oh, and he tells the jury they don't need to be unanimous. Excuse me? Since when do we change the rules of justice to suit our political goals? Let's talk about the prosecution's star witness, Michael Cohen, a man who has lied to Congress, lied to the FBI, lied to the courts, and that's who they built their case on? That's who they trust with the truth? Meanwhile, a highly respected expert on campaign finance, Mr. Smith, was barred from testifying because his facts didn't support the narrative. Jordan laid out plain and simple. This entire case is built on shaky legal ground. They took misdemeanor bookkeeping violations and inflated them into felony charges by connecting them to an alleged federal crime that was never even proven in court. In fact, the statute doesn't support the indictment at all. This is about as unconstitutional as it gets. Due process? Out the window. Now, let's be clear. This isn't just about Donald Trump. This is about every one of us who believes in the rule of law. If they can do this to a billionaire, a former president, a political outsider who dared to fight the deep state, what do you think they'll do to you or me? This is lawfare using the courts to silence your political enemies. And that's exactly what they're doing. We can't sit on the sidelines anymore, patriots. The radical left is playing for keeps. They've infected our courts, our schools, our media, and they try to rig the 2024 election by locking up their opponent. That's not democracy. That's dictatorship. It's time to speak up, organize, and vote like our country depends on it. Because it does. Thank you, Representative Jim Jordan, for saying what needed to be said. And to Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo, Judge Merchan, and every other political operative masquerading as a public servant, we see you. And we're coming. If you believe in truth and liberty and in fighting back, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with every red-blooded American you know. We will not be silenced. We will not be intimidated. And we will not let them destroy this republic. United States, God bless you. God bless President Trump, and God bless the United States of America.